Do you remember is when the Asian gentleman was playing and he packed and he beat him for a couple of million and he was packing up all of the towels and the Howard, you know that story?
The politicians came cheap. We could handle them. It's a whale like K.K. Ichikawa who plays $30,000 a hand in Baccarat. That's the one you really gotta watch. He plays fast and big and he has the cash and the credit to turn out your lights. About a year ago, he cleaned out a couple of casinos in the Cayman Islands. Downstairs, he takes us for $2 million, and upstairs, he takes free soap, shampoo, and towels. Another billionaire cheapskate who loved his free rooms, free private jets, and $2 million of our money. Fritz.
What the hell went wrong? I'm awfully sorry. I can't understand it. These mechanical fans, you know they happen better here than up there, you know what I mean?
Then he missed the commercial flights connecting with Japan.
I can't believe it. There's a convention. There's never...
We got him back with a whole floor of rooms to himself. Sorry, Mr. Twain.
Let's get to my money.
No gambling. And once he was back, he played small. He bet $1,000 a hand instead of his usual $30,000 a hand.
So the bank was a natural 8 over 5.
But I knew the trick with whales like Ichikawa was that they can't bet small for long. He didn't think of it as winning $10,000. He thought of it as losing $90,000. So he upped his bets. Until he dropped his winnings back and gave up $1 million of his own cash. In the casino, the cardinal rule is to keep them playing and keep them coming back. The longer they play, the more they lose. In the end, we get it all.
I'm sure it's happened more than once, and I'm sure it happened in Vegas, but it happened at Showboat when we were there. This Asian customer came in who lost $2 million roughly, and then while he was there, he won it back, and he won $2 million, and then he wanted to leave. And they did the same thing. They took him to the airport, and he said, "Oh, we had engine problems." Yeah. And he came back, and he lost the $2 million he had won back, plus his original $2 million. And when I came in after that incident, but I was tasked with trying to collect because this guy lived in Hong Kong, and the junket rep, who's still a junket rep, so I won't mention his name, but he just kept trying to put me off. Was kind of getting strong in the collection effort, and finally, we were at one meeting. It had been a year he'd owed us this money, this $2 million. And he said, "Oh, well, we don't want to offend the customer." And I said, "You know what? I'm pretty offended right now. He owes $2 million. He hasn't paid us for a year. He won't even really talk to us. I'm hiring an attorney." And I hired an attorney, and this is a learning experience for me, but I was always told that in Asia, it's very hard to collect, and it is almost impossible in some places. But in Hong Kong, they take gambling debts, well, they used to, maybe not now. They take gambling debts super seriously. So once we got to the right channels, they went to this guy's house, and he was from a prominent family there, and they arrested him. Actually handcuffed him and took him to jail, and then we got our money.
I do a lot of consulting on Asian casino marketing. I've kind of carved out a niche of being an expert in that area. Everybody looks at the Asians, and they categorize it as one size fits all. Well, it's not true. Asia is not Asia. Asia is a melting pot of numerous different cultures, ethnicity, languages, customs, holidays, food, etc. So that what happens, a lot of the casinos get there and they almost brand every Asian customer as Chinese, and they start printing everything in Chinese. Every menu they come up as Chinese, and it's wrong. And so I started beginning to educate people on the different ethnicities and
so how
they have to treat each one.
How does a casino distinguish? How do they understand the different culture? I mean, because that's a common thing. Do you just go up and ask somebody?
No, the first thing is you've got to understand your market, and who are your customers? Where are they coming from? And a lot of that will be dependent upon your Asian casino hosts. And you have to try to hire good people, reliable people, honest people, and then rely on them to give you an idea. And then what you want to do is you want to build your database, and that's where the casino loyalty, programs come in. Is you incentivize them to join. So by joining, they get they get offers, so they get promotional gifts or everything. Invited for a free cruise. I mean, it could be anything. So by offering this incentive, you build your database. You find out what language they would prefer to, get messages in, and then you begin to segment it. And so here in the Northeast, it's predominantly the largest segment is Chinese, then it's Vietnamese, and then maybe Korean second, Vietnamese, and Japanese, and then everything Filipino, Thai, Laos, Cambodian, all mixed together.
Steve, I would have to agree with you. I've been in several different jurisdictions where we have had the same types of problems. People look at the clientele and they assume that, unfortunately, all Asians are the same, which we know is not true. And we can't understand why you're not able to maximize the potential for that particular segment of the guests until you start to dial in and realize what ethnicity are they really from. Are they Vietnamese? Are they Chinese? Are they Korean? If they're Chinese, what dialect do they speak? Because the worst thing that you can do is try to market to this particular group and market incorrectly. And I've been in jurisdictions where we've stumbled and couldn't figure it out until we went to basically the local community and said, why aren't your people coming? What are we doing wrong? And it just takes that one person to be able to tell you, well, you send something in Vietnamese when they're really Korean, or you send something in Chinese when they're Vietnamese. And unfortunately, in most cases, the casino doesn't realize this. So what we've done in the various different properties to remedy this is to go out and find out what ethnicity they actually are, and then try to hire an Asian host of that ethnicity. And if we can't do that, we'll actually see if we have someone on property who happens to be of that ethnicity, and try to utilize them as a either a host or a translator or interpreter, so that the guest understands that we see them and realize what their value is, so that we can talk to them. We can find out what they do like, what they don't like. Now you've opened up that door, because we've gone so far as to employ individuals who will bring in shows targeted just for a certain ethnic group, for the Asians. And then you bring in the show, then you bring in the food, and now you're catering directly to that individual group. And now they feel included. Now they feel welcome. They feel important.
And not insulted.
Feel that. Then they will then start to give you the loyalty is what you're looking for. You want to see them come back, whether it's every week, every 2 weeks, whatever the case is, in some cases every day. You want to be able to see that. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is through building that trust, and for them to realize that you see them for who they are.
Yeah, I never really knew specifically that those things were happening or occurring. I kind of was probably guilty of the same thing. I know that they're different in cultures, but I'm thinking that they're similar in the dialect and the language and so forth. And Steve had mentioned the same like you, when you go and recruit people who are specifically of that culture, and to develop them into positions such as executive host or Asian marketing. I also mentioned earlier that I was a host, and Augie Renner recruited the gentleman out of the Asian restaurant. His name was Ming Ling. Ming was very sharp, very astute. He was an academic and was very professional. And that's how Augie recognized him. And right now he ended up being I think he's a CEO of a company in Korea.
Every week we'd have a staff meeting. And so I would always attend the Asian staff meetings. And sometimes I would just sit there, as a fly on the wall listening and let the manager run it. And then I would critique them afterwards and say, look, you missed this, or we should have focused on that. And it became a situation of trust where they didn't resent it. It wasn't, this guy's trying to tell me how to run my area. No, I'm trying to tell you how to do a good job so you'll be more successful. And so I've run in now to quite a few casinos that have taken this approach. They're very successful in their Asian marketing. The ones that haven't, are not, and they have all kinds of problems. And so, we were very lucky, and I worked at Caesars Atlantic City for 11 years. I was the vice president of casino marketing, and then I went overseas for several years, and then came back and worked at Foxwoods for 7 years. So both of them, we had access to probably one of the largest Asian communities in the country. In New York, it was in the millions. And so then we looked and we said, ethnic marketing. Boy, that's, not just Asian, but, yes, okay, we want the Chinese, the Korean, the Vietnamese, but what about the Greeks, the Lebanese, the Russians, And so we started applying the exact same principles to ethnic marketing. And obviously the ethnic marketing wasn't as big as the Asian, but it was very lucrative because these were cultures that people were used to gambling and grew up, where gambling was acceptable. And so we started even bringing in Russian shows, Middle Eastern shows. I mean, and carved out a huge, very, very profitable niche of business. So Henry, I'm sure you've seen that in many of the casinos you worked at as well.
Well, I mean, here in Miami, I mean, we totally have a diverse market. Believe it or not, we don't have plenty of Chinese here. Vietnamese is more prevalent. And the diversity comes with Russian and Israeli and also Venezuelan, South American influence here in South Florida. So this was a real Asian, whatever. And it is a mix. So when we started Hard Rock in the beginning in 2004, it just became like a snowball effect to say, wait a minute. So now the people that were coming through the door didn't look like the Northeast, didn't feel like Las Vegas. It was a totally different market. And then eventually we started picking up different cultures. And also we started picking up different employees to actually, adjust to those cultures, like Vietnamese and speaking French. And we hired a Russian host. They could speak Russian, as our marketing team got bigger, and we started hiring accordingly. In the beginning, like Foxwoods, and you remember, like even at Foxwoods, you're hiring local kids here that just happen to come in and apply. You need bodies.
Yeah.
That's how it was. And here, it was the same thing down here in Fort Lauderdale area. Hollywood, we just started hiring people because they were just available bodies. For my money, I mean, I'd rather hire like a used car salesman.
Right. Hey, can I transition this for a minute, guys? I really want to dig back to that subject that you mentioned, Steve, and I kind of teased it a little bit, but you ran away from me. You ran away. I tried to get you. I want to hear both of you guys talk about this. This is a great subject. I think people would really get an appreciation, and those managers that are out there can learn a lot from that subject of how do you take a customer off the ledge, or what was the title that you said, Steve? Firing a bad customer or something?
Yeah, how, when, why to fire a customer.
Okay, yeah. Tell me what you think about what's the way both of you guys.
Well, let me tell you, Steve and I probably have totally two different ways of firing a customer. He's more elegant and articulated about it. I'm more, let's see what happens. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Henry. Let me hear it. Let me hear your way.
Steve is more elegant at this.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, and so ultimately what you want to do is you want to try to make every effort possible to salvage the customer, save them, because the last thing you want to do is get rid of them. It's easy to fire a customer. You just cut them off. And but to find a brand new customer, especially a good VIP type player, it's worth the effort. So whenever we would have an incident, I would.
You mean it's worth the effort because it's difficult to find a new player to take the place of that player that you're going to lose. You're saying, is that what you mean?
Yes, and especially if he's a valuable player. But you don't want anybody that's, number one, going to try to cheat you, that's going to really totally abuse your staff. I mean, so there are reasons why you fire a customer. So what Henry said, something that really resonated well. I mean, he's a floor jockey, but I was too. And when I worked overseas, I always had my office either right off the casino floor And I came back because my mother was quite ill. I was working overseas, and my dad called and said, "Your mom's quite sick." And so my wife said, "Steve, you only have one mother. You've got to go home." So I came back, and right when I came back, I got a call from Bob DeSalvio, who we had worked together in Atlantic City, and he was at Foxwoods and said, "I really need somebody in marketing. Would you like to work?" I says, "Just it's very, very opportune time." So I came, and so we looked around, and there was an office right in the middle of the casino floor. It was at one point in time was used as a shift manager's office, but most of the time they were never in the office because the shift managers, just like Henry said, were out on the floor unless they had to go in and do some paperwork. Mm-hmm. So I asked the president, and I said, I would like that as an office, because when you're having a dispute with a customer, you're right there, right on the floor. You can take them in and resolve it. I don't want to be in the executive office, on the other side of the building, and you're just too removed.
So that's where you had that private conversation. Because I tell you, an example I can recall, I was in Detroit, and I remember pulling this particular player who was really just an asshole. He was a total jerk, but he was a big player, so a lot was tolerated. I took him to the side, and I said a few words that I'm glad they weren't able to read my lips. And I made sure there weren't any witnesses. And sometimes you may have to do that, and then smile and shake his hand when everybody else was around. But he got my message, and it was just something that I had to do, So that back office, that office off the floor right there, that's convenient to take them right there to have that conversation. Or other things. That's not always. It's not the bad room, but it's a place where you have to be secluded or private, I guess.
Yeah. The other thing you have to understand both sides of the coin, Bruce. Dealers are human beings, and human beings make mistakes. A lot of times they're honest mistakes. So I found that a lot of times when the customer blew up and threw his cards or started swearing at the dealer or whatever, when we went back and we looked and we reviewed the tape or whatever, the customer was right. The dealer dealt the hand wrong. Made a mistake that just cost the guy $10,000.
Oh yeah, many times. Yeah.
So I put myself in the customer's shoes. That boy, if that was my $10,000, I'd be upset too. And sometimes I can control my temper, but other people can't. And the guy's effing the dealer and throwing the cards and pushing his drinks on the floor, and just really obnoxious. And so we would try to get him off the floor, and and I would always start with, "Okay, sit down, calm down. I'm here to help you." So you want to break that animosity. I'm going to do everything I can to resolve it, but please tell me exactly what happened. And I would just listen, and I'd let him vent.
What's your take on this, Henry?
Well, I mean, in player, I mean, I was, I only can go back 20 years since I was here at Hard Rock. I mean, but I can go all the way back. I mean, I've seen, especially at Golden Nugget. I mean, we dealt with some we dealt with everybody there. It was just an unbelievable experience. But as far as like our company here in Florida, in player development, you fire a customer, but I was taught early on, you never lose a customer. You can fire a customer. They don't have to, because personalities never mesh. So you don't have to we don't get along. It's like a relationship, it's like a girlfriend. All of a sudden it comes time to break up. It's just the way it is. After like 2, 3 years, 4 years of handling somebody, it just goes sour, the relationship. So instead of losing that customer, I just hand them off. I said, listen, maybe I'm not the right fit. I know I've known you. Listen, I respect you as you're a great customer. I can't, I'm not going to let you walk out the door because me and you don't, but I'm going to get you somebody that actually has your, a little bit better understanding of your personality or whatever, or just get you away. And so you could be happy here, because I really want them to be happy on property. It has nothing to do with me.
It's not personal, right?
No, it's never. No. Well, it can be once in a while, but what I'm saying is that you guys. I mean, I fired plenty of customers, but never lost a customer, because I was taught by Charlie Myerson, and God bless him, he was my mentor, and he always preached to never lose a customer, and it's the truth. So I hand them off.
Okay. Well, listen, we got about maybe a few seconds here left on this segment of this podcast. What would you say, each of you individually, what is the biggest advice that you would give anyone that's in the casino industry or interested in to get into the casino business that would be helpful for their careers, maybe their career path, or something that will help them sustain a good mental mindset while they're in the business? What advice could you give? Lance, how about you? What would you say?
Casino, the real story, I think is very appropriate because that movie reminds me of a phrase from Dragnet. The names are changed to protect the innocent, or in this case, the not so innocent. But I think that it's a great business. We all know that we've spent, I hate to say this, but decades in this industry. We've had the opportunity to travel all over the country, all over the world. You meet some fantastic people. You build relationships, as obviously we have here all over the years. You have to be able to want to learn, keep your mind open, be willing to learn from other people and not think that you know everything. And if keep your eyes open and want to learn, there are people out there, such as ourselves, who want to pass their knowledge on, who want to teach people, to want to be able to teach that next generation, because we know how wonderful this business can be. And just the opportunity to be able to share that with others, I think, is what is our legacy.
Excellent point. Thank you, Lance, for that. Excellent. Howard?
Yeah, it's a hard one. I mean, it's different now than when I was growing up, but I guess generally my advice would be similar in terms of, to always be learning. But my other advice would be to choose who you work for carefully, and not just the person, but the company. But obviously the person you report to is important too. And if you don't respect them, and for good reason, don't be afraid to make a move and get somewhere where you can respect who you work for and where you can learn more. Because chances are, if you don't respect them, you're not learning much from them anyway. I always felt that becoming technically as good as you can is important. It's not everything, but it helps you to be able to perform the technical aspects of your job well, which will help you be promoted. But you have to combine that with just basically enjoying people, and that includes the people you work for.
Is it like learning golf? You can get into it at any age?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think you need to be young to do it. No, not at all.
Henry, what would you say would be something that you would pass on, most important or good advice you would offer?
I think the best advice I have right now is to take this show right here on the road and go to every casino and, basically sit down with either the brass or whoever and actually do and say exactly what we're talking about, and give them our experience, strength, and hope for the casino, moving forward. And actually, I think that would be probably the best thing we all could do together. But again, do they want to hear us? Do they want to hear about reality? What we know? And a lot of them, you look at some of these CEOs today, they're like 30 years old, 35 years old. I think our experience is invaluable. I think that something like this, a cluster of us, together, and I mean, basically, just pay our airfare and buy us lunch. We'll be there.
I only travel business class.
Huh? Yeah, well, whatever it is, you know what I mean? I mean, I hear you, Howard. But I think that's probably and that's like we were talking about before. How do you build instincts? How do you train? Training sometimes with these casinos is there's no ROI, they think. So now when you have accountants running these joints, it's a whole different feel, you know what I mean? So and they won't, and I don't know like I said again, I don't know whether they want to hear us, and I think they're really missing a big chunk of experience that's out there. And it's not just the circle that we have here. There's a lot of veterans out there that, you know, the casinos don't take advantage of. They don't take advantage of the knowledge that's out there, and to actually, you know, and because they don't see the holes in their product.
It's actually worse than not taking advantage. They actually don't think it adds value.
And yeah, well, guess what? It does, because, you know, let me tell you something.
Yes, it does. Yep.
Yes, it does. And so Bruce, I'm giving you the challenge. Get a road show going. We're available.
Steve, what about you? Any parting words, meaningful advice you can give folks who are listening to this?
A couple of things. One, I think we were all very, very lucky and fortunate to start in the industry when we did, because I think the growth years were the fun years. I mean, I loved working in the casino industry. I mean, I couldn't wait to go to work every day. I went in excited. I was happy. I was continually motivated. And then what happened? The industry began to develop, and it began to change. And you know, when I first started in the 70s, I mean, you had Las Vegas, Lake Tahoe, and then Atlantic City, and then a couple of riverboats, and now there are over 1,000 casinos in the United States between Indian gaming and all the jurisdictions. So what's happened is the industry's gone through a metamorphosis and change dramatically from when we started, and you know, and it's a different industry. So you have a huge upward mobility program, and you know, somebody, I think, you know, Henry or Lance or somebody hit on it earlier, that a lot of the people don't get the training that they should have, and they're, you know, next thing you know, they're go from dealer to shift manager in 3 years. I mean, it's, you know, it's impossible to gain the amount of knowledge that they really should have. So now when I'm going out consulting, as a norm, it's amazing. Most of the properties I go into, everybody's unhappy. I shouldn't say everybody, but a large percentage of the people, the employees, are unhappy. They're not motivated. They see the career as kind of a dead-end career. And I think this is something that, you know, we need to begin to impart this information to management, because it's not all about bottom line. That's short term, you know, and you know, long term is called sustainability. And how do you keep your labor force motivated? How do you keep them engaged? How do you keep them happy? And that's part of our responsibility. Second thing, as a new employee, I tell people today, you know, a lot of it is going to depend on you. And, you know, if this is an industry that you like and you want to make a career, then make the effort to learn. I says there are books out there you can buy. There's a lot of information on certain websites. You can read educational articles. Teach yourself. Also look to try to identify a qualified, good mentor and see if you can get close to them. And a lot of them, honestly, they're probably too busy, but maybe they'll give you an hour once every 3 months to just sit down and have a Coca-Cola or a cup of coffee and pick their brain, or you know, or just somebody that you emulate and can, you know, that you want to be like, and follow their career and see how do they handle themselves in the casino. How do they manage and motivate their staff? Because that's what you want to do. And so maybe you're starting off as a dealer, but you know, you've got a foot in the door, and a lot of the casinos look to promote from within. So, you know, if you develop certain skill sets, and whether, you know, maybe you're going to school nights for accounting, or maybe you're going to school for marketing or whatever, you know, try to move around within the company. But the one thing is, if you find that you're not happy in that company, get the hell out. It's the wrong place. You know, look for another job, look for another casino, but look for something that you're going to be happy at. Because if you're not happy now, you're going to be miserable later on. Because 2-3 years down the road, you're likely to be stuck in that same position, you know, where it's going to be more and more boring, and you're not doing the justice to yourself or your family. The third point is, none of these casinos generate loyalty. I mean, I used to be the cheerleader, always preached loyalty, 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 until I realized that the organizations are only loyal to themselves. So your loyalty has to be to yourself and your family. But by being happy and being motivated and being productive, you're going to provide benefit to the casino. So it's a symbiotic situation, but the ultimate responsibility for your career has to fall on you, and you have to make the effort to try to learn wherever you can. And the casino's not going to run a lot of in-house training programs. They may run some occasional seminars, but make that effort to talk to the people, like us that have been in the industry for a while that maybe you can learn. See if there's anything that's published. Read whatever you can, but take the responsibility for your own career.
Lance, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Thanks for participating and being here with us today. Steve, Euro Asia Consulting LLC.
Thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure. Good to see you all.
Absolutely. And Henry as well. This started with you. You and I were talking about getting together, and next thing you know, it kind of morphed into let's call Howard, let's call Steve, and it was a great idea to get together. Thank you so much for joining, and appreciate your contributions and your positions and your knowledge for sharing. Thank you for sharing. Howard Dreitzer, I owe you big time. Just put it on layaway, man. Put it on my account. 2 o'clock in the morning.
I'll see you at your shop.
Absolutely.
Pleasure to see everybody.
All you guys. Thanks a lot.
All the best.
Chex Play. Everybody likes, share, and subscribe. Steve, Lance, Henry, and Mr. Dreitzer. Thank you so much. Chex Play. See you guys later.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Good seeing everybody.
Thank you.